Hey guys, and welcome back to Cornerstone Youth Markham's YouTube channel. My name is Sarah, and today we are continuing on with our series called Free People, where through the book of James, we're going to learn more about God's law for us, love God and love others as ourselves, and see how it changes the way we live our lives. If you were king or queen for a day, what rules would you make or break? Being in charge sounds pretty fun, right? You could fill up your schedule with things you like to do and then skip the things you don't. Or you could stop going to the certain classes in school that you don't like, or just cancel school altogether. Or you could pass laws that make your life more fun, happy, and convenient. We all want freedom to do our own thing. But if everyone wants different things, how do we decide who gets what they want?
Last time on Half-Baked with Clark, our hero added a surprise ingredient into his chocolate chip butterscotch spicy cookie batter. Sriracha? Sriracha, oh no. This week, tune in to see Clark following a recipe for once. Will mercies never cease?
So we got to see me try it without a recipe, and that was pretty half-baked. But now, we get to do it with the recipe. Let's hope things go a little bit better this time. Okay, so when I did this before, I didn't bother with doing any measurements. I was pretty much just running into the pantry and into the fridge and just grabbing any amounts of whatever and throwing together what I thought looked like the right amount. But baking is a bit more of a science, so you want to be a bit more exact with the measurements. So let's see what we need. Let's start with the dry ingredients. So I need 2 3/4 cups all-purpose flour. I need 1.5 teaspoons baking soda. And a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Next, we're gonna go with the wet ingredients. Our sugar, 1 cup white sugar, and 1 cup brown sugar. And you can use butter, or in this case, I'm gonna use shortening. Now, I got 2 eggs this time, not 4 like before. That's way too many eggs. 2 will do. And lastly, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and I won't drink it this time. All right, now it's time to finally get to the mixing, and let's start on the lowest setting first. And you can see that this time around, the dough isn't nearly as wet as it was when I did it without the recipe. Clearly, I had way too much butter, way too many eggs. All right, we've got our base batter all mixed up now, so here comes the fun part. We get to add in the chocolate chips.
Oh yeah.
So then we're just gonna make little dough balls, get them on our pan. You wanna make sure that you space them out so that when they cook, they'll flatten out. You don't want them sticking into each other. All right, we've got our dough all nice and spaced out. Time to go in the oven. All right, so now the moment of truth. Let's see if I got this right. So that was about 11 minutes. Well, it definitely looks better than the last time without the recipe. Now, will they taste better? Well, we'll find out.
I don't know about you, but I'm proud of Clark. We all remember the horror of last week's episode, but Clark showed us that rules in the kitchen are definitely important. See people's taste test reactions to the cookies in our next video.
For the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about the most important rule that God has ever given to us. You know, some people think that God wants us to obey a long list of rules, but Jesus said there is one law that matters the most, and that's the law of love. Do you remember it? According to Jesus, following God comes down to this: love God and love others as you love yourselves. And the greatest commandment sounds simple, but it's not easy to do. Now, we've been talking a lot about James, and if you don't know who he is, let me refresh your memory for a moment. He was a brother of Jesus, and he was a leader in the Jerusalem church during the early years of the Jesus movement. During that time, he wrote a letter to the early Jesus followers that we now know as the book in the Bible called James. And James was known as very just and fair. In fact, his nickname was James the Just. So people from all around would go to James for wisdom. So when a dispute arose among a bunch of churches from different regions, they looked to James for wisdom to judge the dispute and make a ruling on who was right and who was wrong. So in Acts 15, I'm going to briefly summarize it for you, but most of the first followers of Jesus were Jewish people who believed that Jesus was the Messiah God had promised them. But not everyone who followed Jesus was from a Jewish background. Some of these early Jesus followers believed that everyone needed to convert to Judaism in order to follow Jesus, and conversion wasn't an easy process. Other Jesus followers believed that the only thing anyone needed to do to follow Jesus was to trust and commit to following him. James listened to all these perspectives and came to a decision that no one should be forced to go through a lot of difficult steps in order to follow Jesus. In fact, in Acts 15, verse 19, this is what he said. "It is my judgment, therefore, that we should not make it difficult for the Gentiles who are turning to God." And Gentiles was a term that was used for anyone who was not Jewish. Did that decision make James uncomfortable? Probably. It would have been easier for James to tell all of them that they had to become Jewish before becoming Christian, because James himself grew up Jewish and he followed Jewish laws. So it would have been easier and more comfortable for him to tell others to do what he did. But James took a difficult path. Why? Well, James was also committed to following Jesus' law of love, and he knew that the most loving thing he could do was make it easy for others to know Jesus. I wonder if James was thinking about that situation when he wrote these words in James 2, verses 12 to 13. "Speak and act as those who are going to be judged by the law that gives freedom, because judgment without mercy will be shown to anyone who has not been merciful. Mercy triumphs over judgment." So what is this saying? Number one, the law gives freedom. God's law, the law of love, gives us freedom. We're free to make the decisions that benefit us and give us what we want, if that's what we want. God's not going to stop us or love us any less. But prepare for judgment. God's law of love gives us freedom, but we're still called to speak and act out of love for God and for others. This is the thing we'll be judged on. There will be no mercy for the unmerciful. James isn't threatening us. He's reminding us that justice has a way of coming back around. So when we mistreat people, take advantage of others, or consistently prioritize ourselves over others, we will eventually face consequences. But God is merciful to the merciful. When we're compassionate, forgiving, and gracious to each other, God sees that. You could say that we have the freedom to treat people however we'd like, but when we prioritize our needs and comforts at the expense of others, we're not really free. That's why Jesus told us that the most important thing that we can do, aside from loving God, is to love others as we love ourselves. And it's why the book of James tells us to show mercy instead of judgment, because we'll never live freely as long as we're only living for ourselves. There is one thing that we will someday all answer for. How did we love God, and how did we love others? We could make decisions that benefit only ourselves, but free people make decisions that benefit others. So when we're faced with a difficult decision, maybe we shouldn't just think in terms of what's right and what's wrong. Maybe we should ask ourselves these two questions. What's best for me? And what's best for others? At the beginning of this video, I asked you guys, what would you do if you were king or queen for a day? But I think a better question to ask you would be, if you were king or queen for a day, how would you make decisions that benefit others? Now, you don't have to wait until you're king or queen to make these decisions. You can make decisions that benefit others any day. So you can start by the way you treat your family, or what you do for your friends, or how you use your time, money, or talents. It's simple. God gives us many opportunities to love others as we love ourselves. Thanks to Jesus, we have freedom, but we'll never live freely as long as we're only living for ourselves, because free people make decisions that benefit others. All right, friends, that wraps up this week's video. Thank you so much for following along, and thank you to Clark for doing your awesome segment. We love having you. So a big hello to everyone watching. Please like this video if you liked it, comment down below your answers to all the questions we asked you today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to follow us on our Instagram at Cornerstone Youth Markham. We love doing polls and questionnaires and interacting with you guys there. Okay, friends, I will see you in the next video. Be blessed. Bye.